Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to be going over the song White Noise. I have my FL Studio project open up for the song, and we'll be taking a look at some of the writing as well as recording the song. As you can see here, a lot of the instrumentation is MIDI between the bass, piano, the drums, which uses FPC, I believe. Yep. And then the trombone, viola, and vibraphone. Those are all just from the Flex plugin. We'll go ahead and start with the first part of the song here, which is just this F sharp minor being played by all the various instruments. The bass does this octave here between basically its lowest F sharp as well as its octave above. The piano does a 3-part octave, and then the viola and trombone are doing similar things, just holding out the note. As we get into the main riff of the song, the bass is playing as well as the guitar parts. Pretty much every song on Solely Termed has 2 separate guitar parts. I label it as rhythm, but realistically it is an ES335 clone I have, and it's using the Fender Deluxe setting on a Strymon Iridium as its amp modeler. Here in this song, it doesn't have a lot of saturation or anything, and it stays fairly plucky throughout the entire song. That's just the ES335, and then the main guitar I use for the solos and stuff is a Fender Stratocaster. It's a SSH or an HSS, whichever way you want to say that. And this one here is using the Marshall stack setting, and the overdrive I have on it is a JHS Bonsai using the Tube Screamer 10 setting. And then both those parts together just kind of layers it out a little bit more, and it gives it a little bit more pluckiness.
White noise trying to dig inside your head. So with me play with such little me and said, yeah, thought this would be a big hit, but it was like.
After that first initial play of the main riff, we get into this structure here where the piano is just adding these extra turnaround chords towards the end. And then you have the trombone and viola following suit as well. So ultimately all we're doing is really adding in this section along with the vocal chorus lines. And as you can see, the trombone and viola are basically mimicking what the piano is doing throughout that section.
White noise trying to dig inside your head. So with me play with such little me and said, yeah, thought this would be a big hit, but it was led. It said you're.
And then towards the end of that initial part of the chorus, we add in this little vibraphone line towards the end. Something kind of funny about the vocals for this section is right about here, as you can see, spliced in horrifically, is this negative 1.1 dB cut that happened here. This little thought this. When initially I was mixing and mastering it, peaked the audio so bad that I had to go in and manually scrub what was going on, because I thought it was an instrument or something initially, but it was literally just that word thought. So I had to go in and splice it and bring it down so the rest of the track could be mixed and mastered as appropriately as I could.
Thought this would be a big hit, but it was led. It said you're turning the whole audience brain dead. White noise trying to dig inside your head. So much being played with such little.
As you can see, as the vibraphone gets added in, once again, just kind of mimicking what the piano is doing coming in.
Know how this is gonna end before it starts. I don't want to hear another song.
And then as we enter into the main verse progression, pretty much everything is just supporting each other. The piano is kind of doing these pads for the chords here, and then down here, the trombone is following the bass line mostly. The actual electric bass is playing something a little bit more interesting. Whereas the trombone is basically just playing the root notes. And then the viola in this case is playing the third of each of those chords. And then taking a look at what the guitars are doing down here at the bottom, they're playing the chords, and the ES335 is basically doing this little plucky style one where we're really emphasizing that last beat of each measure, so the 4. And then the Stratocaster is basically doing something similar. It's a little bit more cleaned up on this than it is during the main riffs in the song. And then putting those two together.
Started up this record, but we've already heard this.
And then the vibraphone isn't heavily used during the verses, but it does do this little arpeggio up and down towards the end of each verse. And then back on the chorus again. Not a ton has changed through this chorus, except for this little guy here. So you might have seen it earlier. I added in this little ad-lib line, as you can see here, and what it is just this little repeat of white noise.
White noise, white noise, white noise.
And during the first instance of the chorus,
play it again and play it again.
It's pretty hidden,
White noise
and you probably really have to listen to it. But during the second chorus, it's a little bit more prevalent.
White noise, white said you thought this would be a big hit, but are misled. It said your turn, the whole audience brain dead. But hey.
And then we get into the bridge of the song, which has the chords, as you can see right there for the piano. And it's kind of this uplifting section. As you can see, there's a lot of rising motion between the trombone and viola in this. And the vibraphone is pretty much following the piano, similar to the verse structure, but adds these little arpeggios towards the end of it.
Hey, maybe you'll finally get that celebrity boyfriend or girlfriend of your choice.
ES335 in this case is just kind of doing those first beats, and then the Stratocaster is playing something a little bit more complete throughout that
section.
Another
song written by committee, another storm beat, and that ain't ready. Another adaptation made again. This type of rain doesn't even need a pen. I'm asking you to put a little on the line, but it's hard to do anything after you sign. We wouldn't want to spoil the place where you dine.
We'll go forward a little bit more. Just another verse structure and then another chorus structure here. And then we'll get into this kind of lead in to the solos on the back half of the song.
The whole audience brain dead.
When, teasing already. When, I wrote this initially on guitar before translating it into MIDI for each of the instruments, and it was a huge pain. As you can see, it's fairly syncopated for what it is. It doesn't feel that syncopated in my opinion, but it is very much so that. Which was a huge pain, but pretty much all the instruments are just following that one structure there. I think the viola goes into, as you can see, during the second one here. It does this harmony section, and then it stays as that harmony throughout the rest of that bridge there. The guitars get added in during that second repeat, and it's fairly similar to how I set up the main riff of the song. So the ES335 is doing this very plucky, clean section, while the Stratocaster is playing a little bit more distorted. If I can mute them. And then really the only thing that changes towards this last part of this intro is we add in the bridge drums, which follows the structure of the main riff of this. Mostly because, once again, it's very syncopated and kind of unnatural. And then we add in these little sting down, these little step downs for the vibraphone there. And then we get into the solo, which mostly follows the same structure as what the chorus is. So it stays on this F sharp minor and then hits these chords towards the end, which I believe is, without looking at it too hard, it's like a C sharp minor, and then I think it's a B sharp, or it's a C sharp minor 7 and then a B minor 7, sorry. But we get into this solo section, and we start off with the vibraphone solo, which this whole which this whole thing I did on a MIDI controller. It's one of the Akai models. I can't remember exactly what it is. I typically don't use that when writing songs. I'll write it initially on guitar and then just transpose it onto a piano wheel, literally just clicking the notes going through. But this one I did mostly on the controller and then just kind of cleaned up in the piano roll. Then we get into the guitar solo section, which is done on the Stratocaster. Then we get into the guitar solo section, which is done on the Stratocaster there. The ES335 throughout the solo is basically just doing these little hits. And then as you can also see, those little vocal ad-libs are actually present in the solo as well. Just super, super quiet. You can see at the bottom here as well, I did some automation to boost the vibraphone volume during the solo as well as the panning, because the panning for the vibraphone in the song is slightly left, not a ton. Just use that to center it back up for the solo. You can also see up here, right around here is our last repetition of that main solo progression or the main riff progression. Mostly you can see it here on the piano line as it starts going from these full chords to just the notes. And in this case, it's literally just playing those F sharps again to reflect how the start of the song is. And then here on this set we're looking at right now, the F sharp is being played by basically every single instrument to reflect the beginning of the song again, just droning in. With the piano just doing this nice little roll into the octave there. That was a little behind the scenes of the song White Noise. Check out the song on your favorite streaming platform or here on YouTube. Give this video a like and subscribe to keep up to date with all Ensemble Incidents releases. After all, music can often be an incident.